This is Molly Grover on behalf of the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce and my colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us for this Air Service Forum. Today, we're going to hear from the Airport Director, Todd Dalsing, on an air service update. This is the best and most recent information on how the air service industry is being impacted due to the COVID-19 crisis. And we're really happy to have our friends and partners from the airport joining us today to share this really important update. Want to encourage you, if you want to ask questions, please use the chat feature that's available for you to use. You can provide that question anytime during the presentation, but we will ask the questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Airport Director, Mr. Todd Dalsing. Todd.
Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Chamber, for coordinating this webinar to keep the members informed during these very difficult times, not only for aviation, but I know it's affecting a lot of people in a lot of different ways right now. So before I get into the presentation, I'm going to turn off my my video here so people can view the full screen, and at the end, I'll turn it back on for questions, of course. Okay, agenda for today is we're just going to revisit the COVID-19 and where we are and where we've been and where we come to today. Some statistics on a national, state, and local level, and where we think we'll be going forward on down the road after we get a ways down into the recovery mode. So just a reminder, the coronavirus or COVID-19 started back in late 2019, December timeframe. In the first case was in early 20. The World Health Organization declared an emergency toward the end of January. And then mid-March, about the 13th, the U.S. became a national emergency. And then on the 15th, the CDC declared no large gatherings. And that's significant for aviation because that's when we really saw our passengers begin to drop off. And here we are, obviously, a month later. So coronavirus information continued on a national level. A good gauge for for all airports is what's called total traveler throughput. And that is TSA's numbers for screened passengers. So, for example, if you fly out of the Dubuque Airport and you drive out and you take advantage of our free parking, you walk through the terminal, quickly get through the queue, and you go through the screening process. Once you get into the sterile hold area, you've now been accounted for as one of these numbers. So just to give you an example on the impact that it's had from 1 year ago on 4/8 of 2019, there were just over 2 million passengers that went through screening in the United States. The same date, 4/8 of this year, 2020, only just under 95,000 people went through the screening process. So as you can see, that's a huge drop in numbers. Reflects about a 96%. And I can tell you from a conference call, obviously this is 4/8, so this information is a little bit old, but a conference call we had just yesterday, TSA reported that number seems to be holding right around the 90,000 range. So they haven't seen an uptick yet, but they haven't seen a drastic decline like they have in the last few weeks. Continue nationally, flight schedule. About a week and a half ago, maybe a little longer, we did have a conversation with American. And at that time, they were estimating that there'd be a 70% flight reduction in April, 80% flight reduction in May. And again, this is very early April when they were making these predictions, but they were hoping for about a 50% flight reduction in June. Now, remember, this is still a very fluid situation and things are changing honestly still day by day, even hour by hour, even as things continue. Just a little side note on the left, it was interesting, I thought, that Chicago O'Hare, one of our busiest airports in the nation, if not world, of their 7 runways, they recently closed 2 of those runways just due to decrease in demand. On a state level, this illustration also is about a week old now, and it has changed. Like I said, things are changing day by day, hour by hour. But basically what this shows is how many seats are normally available and what we are down as of about a week ago. In Dubuque, you can see Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Sioux City, all had a large impact as far as seats that were down. Down to local, our statistics, as you can see, our stats at a glance. On the top row, you've got the months, so 2018, 19, and 20. And then there's a comparison from year over year. So as you can see, in January and February, we were beginning to recover a little bit after about 2 months of the Arctic cold and the blizzard and everything that we had in 19. So it was great that we're seeing some improvements. And then in March, as I said a few slides ago, about the mid-March 13th or so, 15th, is when we saw that drastic drop off of passengers using air service, not just in Dubuque, but nationwide. And that's reflected at that a decrease of 50% over last year's number. And then we also made a estimate on passengers for the month of April. And as you can see, we're estimating a change of a negative 95%. And that kind of falls in line with what TSA is seeing at their screening checkpoints right now. So our flight schedule in April of 2020, and this is obviously we have American with service from Dubuque to Chicago, and on a normal schedule, it would be 3 flights a day. Just like they had mentioned that there would be a 70% decrease in April, we went from 3 flights a day to basically to 1, where we're at now on the 14th. And then in May, true to their word, saying there's going to be an 80% decrease in flight in May, we went from 3 flights a day, of course, down to 1 flight a day, 4 times a week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, there'll be 0 flights. And Sunday, Monday, basically Thursday, Friday, there'll be 1 flight. And this is not unique to Dubuque in any way, shape, or form. You'll see this in Waterloo, Sioux Cities, the 200 other commercial airports that are very similar to Dubuque will all have similar schedules. So when will the travel industry bounce back? So we wanted to look up and give you some airline responses. So it's not just me telling you what's going on. We want to let you know what the experts in the industry are telling us right now. So American, one thing that I found interesting in these quotes was what is also unclear is the impact on what I would call midterm demand. So American in this response anyways, they're not really looking at well, they are looking at what's happening right now, of course, but they're not really looking for the long term yet. I think they're looking at, they're going to be waiting till mid to late summer just to kind of see what the demand is going to be, how fast it's going to come back, how great that demand is going to be before they can actually predict what they're going to be doing through the winter and spring of the following year. United Airline had a pretty accurate response, and this is one that I'm reading several different industries that, before last month, United's worst case scenario was 9/11 when the government grounded all airplanes for 3 days and demand took months to recover. And they go on to say that it's not worse than it, but 2 to 3 times worse, depending on how long it lasts, could even be larger in terms of how much worse it was than 9/11. And I was around in the Dubuque Regional Airport during 9/11, and it is very similar to that. Delta Airlines, Delta CEO, he also quoted 9/11 saying, this is 9/11, SARS, and the Great Recession all rolled into one. That's how Delta CEO explains it. And then we also wanted to not just quote airlines, but also some of the experts and some of the media. CNN was correct when they reported that the airline execs executives do expect fewer flights and a decrease in demand for the foreseeable future. An analysis at Stifel, demand for air travel will not return to normal until mid-2021 at the earliest, under a best case scenario. And I would agree with that. This is not going to be a short-term fix for aviation. It's going to be long-term. We know from experience that after 9/11, it took 9 months to a year to even get back to normal in aviation. And like you've read in some of these, and we're still reading, they're comparing this to 9/11. Even the Atmosphere Research Group says the recovery time will slowly stretch out for 2 full years. I hope that's not the case, but it is a possibility. And Forbes is saying that the effects of the outbreak will be felt in aviation for several years to come. It will bounce back, it always does, but just expect the recovery to be slow. So moving forward, and for those that aren't on the computer and can't see this, I'm going to read this for you. But the aviation industry helps power Americans' economy. The millions and millions of travelers depend on airlines to conduct business across the United States and the globe. Simply put, when airplanes can't fly, the American economy is grounded too. We've been in a stipulation like this before. In the aftermath of September 11th, all air travel was halted, aircraft were grounded, and airports closed. Once airlines started flying again, the recovery followed, and months later, our economy regained its strength. Some quick facts and tips is the slide we have up now. Obviously, Dubuque Airport, we are all closely monitoring the developments related to the COVID-19, and will continue to work with local, state, and federal partners. We do not recommend travel at this time, and let me make that clear. This isn't a time for people to be out leisure travel. We definitely want you to follow all the federal, state, and local guidelines and recommendations. Definitely do not recommend travel at this time. However, there are essential personnel that are out there that are required to travel for their business, or maybe they have a medical procedure that's non-elective that they have to have done, and they have to fly to get to that facility. We are open and operational. Aviation is an essential business, and we are there for the public. But we do recommend that you keep up to date on your flights by visiting their American Airlines website, www.aa.com. You can also connect to their website on our website at flydbq.com. We always recommend downloading the app. It's a very convenient tool. They send you notifications, and even while you're traveling, you'll get updates on your gates and departure times if those may change. We suggest you review all the airline, TSA, and CDC coronavirus websites. I think even importantly is check with your destination. Iowa might be in good shape, but let's say you're flying to New York, for example, and they were doing good, but things pick back up. Maybe they've got new public health information where you might have to be quarantined when you get there. Or if you're going to be flying overseas, make sure you check your destination, please. Some helpful websites again, AA.com. CDC is a good one for the Center of Disease Control. The city of Dubuque has a fantastic website with tons of factual information that really anything that you need to know is on that. But yeah, for travel, if you go to AA.com or CDC.com, they'll give you some more travel information there as well. And with that, we will get through this together. When the restrictions are lifted, please remember to shop local, fly Dubuque. Thank you, and Molly, I'm going to turn it back over to you at this time.
Thank you so much, Todd. Before we get to questions, a couple comments in summary. Can't emphasize it enough that this is not just the Dubuque Regional Airport, that this is happening to and these challenges that we're facing. And this just isn't nationwide. This is a global impact to the airline industry, and we can't emphasize that enough. So I want to leave with that thought. And then a few takeaways. One, the SCASD grant. The world certainly looks different than it did the middle of February when we found out that we received the SCASD grant. But that being said, there's lots of airports that would like to be in our shoes and have that SCASD grant. It's good for 3 years. We're still really well positioned. Not all airports have that in their back pocket. We still do. So when we're talking about recovery and we get there and we have some return to normalcy, whether that's 1 year or 2 years, whatever that looks like, we have the SCASD grant, and that's a huge positive for the Dubuque Regional Airport and air service in our community. 2, we have excellent relationships. We have built them over many years, and those relationships are alive and well, and we continue to cultivate them. That was further demonstrated at the Air Service Conference meet and hunt that we went to in Arizona. And last but not least, in talking about recovery, when we get to recovery, what our recovery looks like and what our air service looks like, in a way, we do have a role to play. So now more than ever, when we get back to business operations and flying, though it's going to be challenging with the reduced capacity, we recognize that. But now more than ever, to remember to fly Dubuque first when we can, that's really going to be important going forward and what it looks like for us for the future. Last but not least, air service has been top on our priority list in terms of priorities, and it will continue to be going forward. We want to make sure we retain and enhance the air service that we have for our business community. It's how we move goods and services. It's how we grow our economy. It's how we create jobs. It's how we attract additional investment to our community. And I'm thankful for our partners at the Dubuque Regional Airport and all they do to support our business community. And thank you for the information that they provided today. We want to get to questions. I know that Sam probably has some that were submitted. Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you, Molly. We did have one question submitted for Todd, and that is, as regulations in regards to social or physical distancing will change the future, would there be an increase in the number of flights to Dubuque or the use of larger planes to allow for social or physical distancing on an airplane?
Okay, thanks, Sam. Yeah, so I can speak for right now. Obviously, there's a number of seats that are available in aircraft right now, and they are currently practicing social distancing on aircraft, meaning, you know, if there's 10 people on the plane, they're not putting them all together. They're separating them by rows and by seats. I can also tell you that aircraft have a air purification system in them. And I have to say most jets, because I can't say that for, you know, purposes that every jet has one, but I do know the ones that do have them are medical grade, and they recycle the air in the aircraft, I think less than 15 minutes. And they do it by section, so it's not like pulling all the air from the front to the back. And they use HEPA type filters to keep that air clean. So, you know, people that say, oh, if I get on a plane and somebody's sick, I'm going to get sick too. Well, you know, maybe if you're in real close proximity to that person, but if you think about it, you know, all these pilots and flight attendants and ground handlers that work on it, if that were the case, everybody would be sick, you know, all the time. So thanks to these air purification systems and enhanced cleaning that they're doing now, and I foresee them doing into the foreseeable future for sure, between flights, when people get off, clean it before they get back on instead of mainly doing it just once at night. But yeah, as far as additional air service or larger aircraft, I can't speak to that. You know, that would be a question that we could follow up with the airlines. But I mean, I think it'd be safe to say that I wouldn't foresee large aircraft just to space people out in during flights.
Thank you. And I did have a note from Karen that Real ID is being postponed until October of 2021.
Correct. Yes. So, and thanks for the reminder, Karen. Yeah, Real ID, what we've been telling at other outings and on our monitors and banners in the airport is that you are, as of October of 2020, you are required to have a Real ID or a passport to fly. As part of this CARES Act, the president has pushed that out to 2021. So I still encourage you to go out and get your Real ID. You know, I did it. It's very easy to do. Just go on the DMV website. They've got all the information right there. As a matter of fact, you can even fill out a sheet and it can tell you what documents to take with you. In a couple of weeks to maybe 3 weeks, you get your ID in the mail and you're done. But now you've got a little more time, so you know what, the next time your ID is getting ready for renewal, that'd be the perfect time to do it. So I highly recommend it, but it's not going to be required October of 2020. But as of right now, from the CARES Act, it will still be required as of October of 2021.
Thank you. And the last question I have is the Dubuque Regional Airport eligible for any of the CARES Act?
Great question. Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, as I said, things are changing daily and even by the hour. We were on a conference call this morning with Secretary Chow and her staff, and they were laying out how things are going to be distributed. We're still working with our own staff and the FAA to get that final number, and then what we can legally do, or you know, within the FAA guidelines of how we can use those funds to support the Dubuque Regional Airport.
Thank you. Well, that is all I have for questions right now.
Okay, Molly, did you want to, any final thoughts?
I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We have recorded this webinar, so if you want to go back and review it, it will be posted online and on social media. If you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with myself or Todd Dalsing. We'll be happy to address any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, together we will defeat 19 and 20. Have a great day.
Thank you. Fly Dubuque.